Brother just had him some chicken. Anyways, today we're going to be doing a video on the best and worst. Really we're going to be ranking team ups in Marvel Rivals. So I'm going to be giving you guys my rankings of the team ups in Marvel Rivals. Now I do need to preface by saying this is a subjective list. Okay, this is not the objective list that you need to be following to be winning all your comp games or your quick match games or your doom match games or anything like that. This is simply my opinion just to give to you guys so that you can tell me your opinion. And if we have different opinions, that's okay. It's okay that yours is wrong. But in all seriousness, this is simply a ranking that I think fits the game. Don't be getting mad at me being like, this guy's bonds. Guys, my max is plat 1. Okay, let's breathe. I never said I was a pro who knows everything. Simply a subjective ranking. With that being said, I am going to be ranking these from bottom to top. So I'm going to giving you my worst to best. And I should also preface by saying, realistically, I do not think that there is a bad team up in this game. I really don't think that, other than Fastball Special. I don't think that there is a single genuinely bad team up in the game. I think in a game like this where all the characters are OP, so it's pretty much balanced, same goes for team ups. All of them are pretty much balanced. There's a few that are definitely better than others, and that's what this video is for, so let's get straight into it. So starting at the bottom, I have the Fastball Special. Now this is kind of disappointing. I understand why it's in the game. Obviously it's iconic, and I think that's what someone like me was excited for, to say, oh, if you put Wolverine in the game, you can do the Fastball Special, that'd be so cool. But that's exactly what it's for. I mean, with a game like this, you have to have obviously some very competitive advantages with team ups, but at the same time, with something like Fastball Special, if you didn't put it in the game, I would be pissed. I would be like, why is this not in the game? We need this in the game. But with it in the game, I never use it. It's kind of just one of those things that has to be in the game. You know, you can throw your friends off the map. It's funny, it's iconic, it's a cool moment from the actual Marvel universe. So it definitely has to be in the game, but other than that, there's not much to say about it. It's not great. Before we go any further, I do want to preface by saying that this list isn't something that I have niche specific criteria for, other than the fact that all I'm really doing is rating the team up as a whole. I'm not rating it in a comp setting. I'm not rating it in a quick match setting. I'm not rating it on a fun scale. I'm simply rating it on what I think is the best and what I think is the worst. That's it. With that being said, let's move on to the next one. How many are there? 16 it looks like. So moving on to number 15, we're gonna have Allied Agents. Now this is kind of what I meant when I said I don't think there's any bad team ups in the game. Hypothetically speaking, there is a multitude of scenarios in which this team up is amazing, except the fact that personally I just don't think it is. I feel like this team up, like I said, it could be great. It could be great. I actually remember when this team up was announced before launch, and me and my friend were talking about it. It was very much like, holy shit, that's kind of OP. But now that the game is out, what I'm kind of thinking is triple DPS isn't really a thing in a good team comp. And so if you're only running 2 DPS, personally, I don't think both DPS should be Hawkeye and Black Widow. I think that's the one thing that doesn't sell this team up for me, is that it's kind of, let me say this too, going forward, I kind of want to pinpoint the idea that there are anchor characters within these team ups. For example, the anchor character in this is Hawkeye. Hawkeye just sits there and Black Widow gets the ability for the team up, right? It's just kind of a passive thing for Hawkeye. He helps her out. So with that being said, it's a team up. You have to have Hawkeye to give Black Widow that ability. And I think it is a really good ability, other than the fact that Black Widow right now, again, she's not a bad character. In my opinion, there are no bad characters in this game, but she's not one of the best, especially with the current state of the game. She's not a character that can do very well in most scenarios. A lot of the time, if you have Black Widow on your team, they might be carrying, but it's extremely unlikely, especially if the other team figures out, hey, I can just dive her and work her. It's not that hard, you know what I'm saying? So that's going to be going at number 15. Moving on to number 14, we have Lunar Force. Now this one I actually thought was pretty good early on, and I will say it is a cool ability, but the more I see it get used, and the more I talk to my friend who mains Taco Man, who mains Moon Knight, he said it mid-game the other day. He was kind of like, this is pointless. The second they hit me, or you know, figure out the bubble's not huge. So if they have a fast fire, if they're a Punisher or whatever the case may be, it's kind of just like, hey, I know you're in there somewhere, and they just shoot you, and you know, it doesn't necessarily do much. Yes, you're invisible, but you're not negating damage, you're not gaining health, you're not doing any of this, so it's kind of like, it is what it is. So gotta go at 14. Moving on to number 13, we have Planet X Pals. Now this one is interesting because it honestly gets used quite a bit, I feel like. It definitely used to get used more, but it still gets used quite a bit. With that being said, again, it just doesn't do much. A lot of the time, you know, if Groot gets CC'd, boom, you're off his shoulder if you're Rocket or Jeff, and there's just not much there. Also, on top of the fact that I feel like most of the people who do use this are simply, if they're playing Rocket, Jeff, whatever, they're simply healing the Groot. They're not necessarily focusing on churning out damage or healing to anyone else other than, I need to heal this Groot, that's my main priority, whatever. And again, you get CC'd, whatever the case may be, it's kind of a lost cause, and it usually ends up with the death of Rocket or Jeff. So gotta be low on this list. Moving on to number 12, we have Dimensional Shortcut. Now this is where we get into territory of why I prefaced, why I said I don't think there's any bad, you know, super bad team ups in the game, because this is one that's useful. This is one that can be used in a viable setting, but the reason I have it so low on this list is, one, you know, it just doesn't get used that much, and two, it is kind of situational, right? It is really good in a dive setting. You have a Psylocke on a flank, you have a Black Panther dive. It's really good in that aspect of, oh, I got caught, I need to get out. But that's also why it can be bad. It's extremely situational. If you are in a scenario in which you press the button and you just end up around more enemies, or everyone else on your team got killed and you're alone, it can end up, you know, without the control, it can end up kind of being a lackluster ability to have, even if it's there. And it's not necessarily an ability or a team up, excuse me, you're going out of your way to get. So it is nice to have in a sense, and it can work out well, but it's not an ability that's gonna get used a ton, and even if it is, it's kind of situational depending on where you get rewinded to. Moving on to number 11, we have Voltaic Union. Now this one is actually pretty interesting because beforehand this was one of the most useful, but in Season 1, all three of these characters are relatively, if not extremely powerful. So I find this one interesting, and I put it a little bit low because all three of these characters, Thor, Storm, and Captain America, on their own right now in the current meta, are extremely good. They are very, very good characters, especially when put in the right hands. And what's interesting about this team up is, in my opinion at least, it doesn't really do much for Storm. It really doesn't. It doesn't do a lot of damage. It just doesn't do much. But for Captain America, the ability kind of lasts longer and you get to do more with it. So I would say it's still a viable team up, especially with Thor and Captain America. But overall, it's interesting because the team up itself doesn't really do much, in the sense that, again, all of these characters are extremely powerful. So I'm going to put it a little bit lower because it's not a team up that you're going to say, oh, we have a Thor, I'm going to play Storm or Captain America. It's more so just like, oh, that worked out. Like, I can do a little bit of extra damage here and there. But it's not a game-changing team-up, to say the least. Working our way into the top 10, we're going to be starting with the Empire State Alum. This one is interesting because I also feel that it doesn't get used as much as it could be, but it's honestly a really underutilized ability. It's, you know, Spider-Man is that anchor character and Squirrel Girl gets the ability, but what's interesting is that it's a good ability, and again, I feel like a lot of people just don't use it. Even when I'm playing Spider-Man and somebody else is playing Squirrel Girl, I feel like they just don't utilize it enough. I feel like that's a big thing in this game that I'm just now realizing as these words come out of my mouth, is that there's a lot of abilities that people just don't utilize because, I don't know, like for example, a penny mine dispenser. It's a what, 12, 13 second cooldown even when destroyed? Just spam it. If it gets destroyed, wait 12 seconds, place it again. I don't know. You don't need that perfect spot type thing, but whatever. This ability is definitely underutilized. Not only does it buy you a couple of seconds and give you that, you know, when the enemies are webbed up, it gives your team a couple of seconds to, okay, take advantage of that, get some damage in. Not only get some damage in, but, you know, do whatever you need to. Heal up, get some damage, move, rotate. It buys you a couple of seconds, and on top of that, it does damage on impact. So definitely an underutilized ability. I feel like not a lot of people use it. Yeah, I don't know. So definitely in the top 10, one of the better abilities, but not the greatest. Next up on the list is going to be Chilling Charisma. This is as simple as it gets, man. This is a pretty good ability when it comes down to it. Now, I know Jeff isn't necessarily the best healer to be running in the game right now, but any character in the right hands could be dominant, you know what I'm saying? But nonetheless, if we exclude Jeff from the equation, if you just look at Luna and Namor, Luna is going to be that anchor character in this team up. And the good thing about Luna is if she's not getting banned in a comp setting, she's always going to be in your lower rank. She's always going to be in your quick match. She's the best healer in the game. She is always going to be there. So for her to have that passive and then you to be able to run kind of an anti-dive combo with Namor and have that frozen turret, have that frozen trident, it's just elite because it's a team up that's kind of going to come naturally no matter what, but also going to help you out in the long run. Honestly, I'm surprised I didn't put it higher on this list. It is a really, really good team up, so definitely had to be up there. Next up on the list at number 8 is going to be the Atlas Bond. Now, I will admit the Atlas Bond is a team up that I didn't really know existed up until making this list. I feel like this is just not a combo that gets ran often, which is interesting, but you know, Iron Fist is Iron Fist, so whatever. But this is one that, again, I find really interesting because it is underutilized. But again, me personally, I have a lot of hours on this game, and I didn't know that it existed. So it is going to go higher on the list because it is a good team up. I mean, you kind of get the healing, you get the stun, you get the damage. Overall, just a really good team up that can be used extremely quickly in the right scenario to really be a game changer. So for a team up that doesn't get used often, I definitely think it should be up there and should be getting used more often than it is. Next up on the list is going to be the Fantastic Four team up. Now this one's interesting because obviously it's probably going to spread to everyone on the Fantastic Four. Hopefully there's more than just this, but whatever. But as of now, specifically with Reed and Sue, it's already great because Reed's survivability by himself is already elite, one of the best in the game. It's up there with the Magnetos and the Venoms. A good Reed Richards player can survive on their own. So to give him this team up, to give him that extra bonus health, that extra health gain, that extra, you know, management of what to do in a scenario where he might die, it's honestly elite because, like I said, put simply, he can survive on his own. So to give him that kind of extra layer that he really doesn't need is just extra safety. And on a good player, he can never die, especially given the fact that, you know, there's healers on your team. So had to be up here. Next up on the list is going to be the Simple Symbiote Bond. Now this one I'm a little bit biased. I just enjoyed this one. It's also kind of, you know, I just like Venom. I like symbiotes. I like Spider-Man, but realistically, it is a really good team up. You know, Venom's kind of that anchor character, and Spider-Man and Penny. And this is the part that I like about the team up is you have the quickest character in the game, a backline diving character who can swing and is melee in Spider-Man, and then you have a very sit still, do what I need to do in this position tank in Penny. So what I like about it is both of them get the team up. And so it's interesting because with Venom, it can kind of go either way, right? You can use it on Spider-Man, you can use it on Penny, but they're both doing the exact same ability. So for Spider-Man, you might need to use it in a one-shot combo. You do a little uppercut, you do a little web shoot, boom, you use your Venom, dead, one shot. Whereas in Penny, okay, maybe they're pushing through a single doorway or a single lane, and you have to use it to kind of knock them back or knock them off point. Overall, really unique, cool comic ability with the symbiotes. And again, I like the fact that you can use it in both a quick dive character setting as well as a sit still tank setting. Really, really cool. Moving into our top 5, we're going to be starting with Metallic Chaos. Now this one, I'm kind of debating whether or not to put this high because I've seen people say this is trash. I've seen people say it's really good. And this is what I have to say about it. It, at its core, is a good team up. The only problem is, as opposed to a Chilling Charisma or an Atlas Bond or even a Symbiote Bond or a Gamma Charge, which we'll get there, this requires a Scarlet Witch. Scarlet Witch is that anchor character, not vice versa. So with, you know, Magneto by himself is already a really good character. He might not feel as good, but he is definitely already a really, really, really good character. Whereas with Scarlet Witch, how do I put this? She's not. She's buns. So this is a really good team up, but it kind of sucks that you have to have that Scarlet Witch to use that Magneto. And again, I said it earlier, there's not a bad character in this game, but Scarlet Witch is definitely lower tiers of characters. So to have a Scarlet Witch be the character that you have to play just to get that Magneto buff is kind of tough. But when given that team up and when given that buff, Magneto is unstoppable. He is one of, if not the best tanks in the game with the Metallic Chaos team up. The damage, the range that you can do, the surprise attacks that you can do. You can hit healers in backline from convoy, whatever the case may be. It is an extremely good team up and turns one of the best tanks in the game into an even better tank, so it had to be up here. Next up on the list is going to be Guardian Revival. Now I'm going to go ahead and pair this one with Ragnarok Rebirth. I do have Ragnarok Rebirth at the 3 spot and Guardian at the 4 spot. However, both of them are basically the same thing, and they're very, very, very good. Now personally, I have Guardian at 4 just because of the people that come back. It is nice in the sense that it's kind of passive and you don't really have to do anything as opposed to Ragnarok Rebirth, but the characters coming back being the Guardians, which are, you know, Mantis or Star-Lord. And Star-Lord is fine, a good Star-Lord is great, but Mantis as a whole is much worth much more than a Star-Lord in a sense. So if you can use it and position it right to where you can bring a Mantis back, that's much better than bringing a Star-Lord back. So that's the only reason it's at 4. But the ability in and of itself is extremely good in the sense that, like I said, you know, okay, if you lose a healer, boom, you're down. Say you have 2 healers, you're down to 1 healer. They just can't do everything. Whereas if you have a Mantis and she's able to get into a position to revive herself, you're right back to 2 healers. It's like you never even lost anything. So definitely a really good ability, and it works right into Ragnarok Rebirth, which is roughly the same thing other than the fact that Hela has to get a kill. The reason I have this higher is because I think both Thor and Loki are both just as important as each other, as opposed to Mantis and Star-Lord. Loki and Thor are super important. In good hands, both can be extremely good characters. I understand that you do have to get a kill as Hela, but that's a fairly easy thing to do. You know what I'm saying? That with the damage she does, given the opportunity, that is a fairly easy thing to be able to do. So, and again, you're bringing back Thor and Loki, so I had to put that at the 3 spot. Moving up to top 2, we have Gamma Charge. I've actually seen some people say Gamma Charge is not great, which that's the one take that I just straight up disagree with, and I think you're a bum if you think that. Gamma Charge is absolutely insane. All 3 of these characters are already good in their own right, and then you take the anchor character in this team up, Hulk, who again is already good, and he makes 2 other characters who are already great even better. To me, this is by far one of the best team ups in the game, and I don't see how people don't see that, because again, you're just taking 3 really good characters and making them even better. I just don't see a world in which that isn't a good team up, so I had to put it at the 2 spot because, I mean, it's as simple as that, really. It's just characters who put out a lot of damage doing more damage. So overall, a really, really good. And on top of that, obviously these team ups are team ups. You have to be playing the characters. So to have a Hulk, Doctor Strange, and Iron Man on the same team, that in and of itself is already a good team comp. So it's built in that way to make you be good, so it had to be placed at the 2 spot. But as of right now, the number 1 spot is going to be Ammo Overload. Punisher and Winter Soldier already did an insane amount of damage, but when you give them Ammo Overload with a faster fire rate and unlimited ammo, it's literally unstoppable. There are plenty, look it up, there are plenty of TikToks and all sorts of things proving that, you know, just Punisher alone can out damage a Luna Snow ult on a tank or whatever the case may be. So, and it's, the cooldown is not crazy. Like, this is something that you can regularly place and you can't destroy, and it's honestly a crazy team up, so it had to go at the 1 spot because it just outputs an insane amount of damage. So there you have it. That is my ranking of the current team ups in Marvel Rivals. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you agree with the list? If you do, you're wrong. I think I said if you agree, you're wrong. That's not right. If you disagree, you're wrong. Let me know what you think in the comments. Do you agree with this list? Do you disagree? What would you change? Let me know down in the comments below. Be sure to follow the socials, the Insta, the TikTok. Join the Discord, link in bio so you know when these videos go live. I will see you in the next one, and goodbye. What if instead of team ups, they were called freak ups? You know?